Today, we're going to be looking at some awesome picks for your commander decks on a budget.
I'm Mia, and I love searching for the perfect Christmas gift.
I'm BZ. I can never find the perfect Christmas gift. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, and I'm in luck because we're sponsored by Raycon.
Raycons are an amazing gift for friends, family, or anyone who loves listening to music and audiobooks. If you order them before December 15th, you'll have them in time for the holidays. Raycon even offers a 30-day happiness guarantee.
I gotta give a quick shout out to their ergonomic design because I have a very large dome. I have trouble fitting it in thumbnails sometimes. It's a problem. Sometimes other earbuds just fall right out, but Raycons actually do fit me, and I'm very appreciative of that.
They fit everyone, from BZ to me. Plus, Raycons are weatherproof and sweat resistant, which means you can wear them whether you're going to the gym or walking in the rain.
We use them every time Miso and Amber want to go for a walk outside in their little cat bubble backpacks.
Raycons come in a ton of vibrant colors, so there's one for everyone. BZ has this awesome orange case, and I have this cool purple one.
They have 32 hours of battery life. In all the time I've had these, they've never died on me, and they have active noise cancellation, so you're going to be blocking out the haters. Go to buyraycon.com/nitpicking to save big for the holidays and get up to 25% off site-wide. That's right, you get up to 25% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/nitpicking. We're also sponsored by Card Kingdom. That's the best place for you to go to not only buy the cards that you were going to buy anyway for a very reasonable price and a very reasonable time frame, but to also support this channel so we can feed Miso over here.
We have singles, doubles, triples, sealed product, accessories, etc. all available on Card Kingdom, which will get to you in a fast rate in one package. Card Kingdom, the best place online to buy cards. We're also sponsored by Moxfield. Later, though, hold your horses. And we're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
Nerds.
at checkout, you could save 5% of your Real My Tax dollars on your entire order, including
25th anniversary sleeves.
Yes.
Those are my favorites.
Those are my favorites, too, along with matte orange, which are my favorites and definitely not BC's.
I was put on the spot, and I won't have it. Also, we have Patreon. If you want to go there, you can see more of Miso, more of us, and get some exclusive perks and stuff. So I would recommend it if you want to get a little bit more Nitpicking Nerds in your life. So we're going to do a video we haven't done in a hot minute. These are like really solid budget recommendations that we have. Cards that we think you should go out and buy right now on cardkingdom.com for very cheap. These are all less than $1, and I think they will make a huge impact in your decks. They're all really cool. I'm excited to talk about them because we haven't talked about budget as much as we'd like to.
Yes, these are cards that we have personally tested, have had great results with, and we love to talk about. The first one is Extracted Confession at 35 cents. That is the cheapest you can get it on Card Kingdom. 1 and a black for a sorcery. As an initial cost to cast a spell, you can collect Evidence 6. Collecting Evidence means exiling cards with total mana value 6 or greater from your graveyard. Each opponent sacks a creature of their choice, but if evidence was collected, each opponent sacks a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. We love a good 3-for-1, and this already at its face is 3-for-1 because they will always sack a creature. However, if you want to get the most power off the board, the most value, because that's probably what they spent a lot of their turn building towards, this big creature, you can exile 6 or more mana value worth from your graveyard to get that clause. I think that's pretty easy, especially in dedicated decks, whether you're milling or whether you're trying to sack stuff to bring it back later. You can just do that, and that's I have had such good luck with this in Mahadi, which revolves around sacrificing to begin with, and with my like pseudo Nekuzar deck, which wants to fill the graveyard because you're drawing a lot of cards, you're going to be pitching a lot, and then if you can pitch enough cards, that is just fodder to be exiling to make sure you get that second mode.
Yeah, black removal is so amazing, and like the top pinnacle of black removal makes it so that you can't really play a lot of the cooler stuff that's lurking down in the lower tiers. Like, this to me is still a very good removal spell, but I never play it in my higher power decks. But in budget, I'm so happy to jump on this for 35 cents because it's really good. It's just not better than Deadly Rollick, Soul Shatter, and like those kind of top tier, Flare of Malice. Like, it's not better than those, but it's still really serviceable, and I like it a lot better than all of the like Infernal Grasps or the Terminates. I think this solves the problem of a spell like Liliana's Triumph, where it's like, oh, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It's like, okay, but they're going to give up their worst creature. Now, Liliana's Triumph is good early, but it's basically terrible as soon as everybody has a choice of what to sacrifice. This is still has that power of being good early, but in the mid to late game, when you have a graveyard, you chuck 2 or 3 cards out, and then you get their best thing. This card is very real, and it's literally like dirt cheap.
I am so sick of people being like 3-for-1 removal is expensive because it's like money expensive. But this is an option where it can be not that expensive. This is even cheaper than like Soul Shatter or Flare of Malice. This is a good budget alternative for that. I am really enjoying this. And 1-for-1 removal, in my opinion, just doesn't really cut it anymore because you get so much value out of cards like these.
Yeah, not that we don't play it, but we're not dying to play 10 1-for-1 removal spells in our deck. Next up is a card I love, and I don't think I've talked about it in a while. So it's Perpetual Timepiece. It's 39 cents. It's a 2-mana artifact that says tap, mill 2 cards, and 2, exile it, shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library. This thing enables your graveyard decks. You need to be pretty heavy on caring about Delirium or creatures in graveyard or something, some kind of Carador or Yuma deck, something like that to reduce based on things in your graveyard. Once you do that, I think 2-mana artifact that just taps mill 2 over and over is like pretty decent. We don't have a ton of cards that are comparable to that don't run out of juice eventually. I know Shriekhorn is like only temporary. And the value that this has late game, I have saved myself so many times just because this card is in my deck somewhere where I'm milling and I can go all in and be super, super aggressive and just play my game knowing that I can shuffle my graveyard in at any point. And also, it protects your graveyard from like a Bajuka Bog.
I feel like there have been so many times where you have almost decked yourself and this has saved your butt. But I really love this too. I have this in Uro and it's been so good. Getting that Exile 5 to bring him back and escape him is such a crucial part of making that deck churn. And this is a great way to fuel that. I feel like turns 2, the early turns and stuff are so vital into making sure you're set up to make sure your game goes like smoothly. And this is one of the cards that really helps you do that.
Yeah, this is a pretty good rate for milling. You're essentially paying 2 mana, and by the time you untap with this, you can mill 4 cards the turn you play it and then the next turn. So I think that's a pretty good rate. And I think the extra little value that sometimes you'll activate and can change the landscape of a game for you, especially when it's hidden information. I have definitely played in cons where people don't know what cards in my deck, and I have 3 cards left and they go, okay, we can ignore him, he's the monarch or something, and I just go whoop, shuffle my everything in, and it's like, uh-oh, you guys are screwed now. So I love Perpetual Timepiece. Can't shout it out enough. It's 39 cents.
I'm surprised it's so low. It's such a good one.
Just an uncommon.
Yeah, the next one is another great card. It's Duelist Heritage at 69 cents. I'm surprised to see this is very low.
Nice.
2 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures attack, you can have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn. I feel like this is overlooked because this doesn't say whenever one or more of your creatures attack. It's whenever one or more creatures attack in general.
Oh, yeah.
I played this in Goad and it was awesome. However, if you are looking for like some sort of political spin or stuff, you can give any creature double strike, provided it doesn't have like hexproof or something, on everybody's turn. So if your opponent's swinging with a big old Voltron creature and they're sending it at someone else, give it double strike. Make them get double the commander damage. If you're getting in with a fly or something, double strike. That's amazing. Save your own creature if they're gonna block with something. It's like, okay, well, this is double strike, so this will do the first strike, kill your stuff. This is an awesome card, and for 3 mana, this really makes people think about whether they want to attack you or somewhere else to get double the value.
Yeah, if this was only working on your side, I would say this card is kind of mediocre, but the fact that you can mess with math so hard, this is very frequently a tiebreaker in my experience when I say, if you don't attack me, I'll give your best thing double strike. Mm-hmm. Very frequently, that thing just goes to someone else because even from their perspective, they go, okay, like it doesn't really matter that much who I'm attacking. I'll chip you down later, and then I'll deal 14 to this person.
Yeah.
Fine, the person with the Duelist Heritage, I'll come for you eventually. But this is a lot of value to get for free. And so when they attack another player, even just minding their own business without a political deal, you just go, okay, double strike over there. And then everyone might be like, oh, yeah, I guess you can do that or something like that, where it just triggers all the time. It definitely changes the way combat works, probably for most of the game.
I like this card a lot, and I would love to see it in a deck that is just filled to the brim with like combat tricks too. It's like, okay, your opponent's stuff, also I'll buff it real quick or give it like infect, something like really spicy like that, and it can be really awesome.
Yeah, definitely changes how combat works, and it's heavily in your favor. And this is once again 70 cents or 69 cents as it were. Next up, a card I think is very overlooked, and I won't stand for it anymore. It's Scampering Surveyor. 35-cent card, dirt cheap, 4 mana 3/4 artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land or a cave, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Sad Robot is a pretty sweet card. A lot of budget decks are happy to play it. And nowadays, it's 79 cents or so it's not hard to pick up. I'm not even proposing this as a budget alternative to Sad Robot. I'm proposing this alongside Sad Robot, sort of, I think, as a replacement to Burnished Heart. I just have not loved Burnished Heart at all. This thing gives you the land right away, and you can sacrifice it for value or whatever. And I think I'd rather pay 4 for 1 than 6 for 2 in that sort of range. I think 4 for 1 feels a lot better. I have played this card in a lot of budget decks. I've loved it.
I am sick of seeing Burnished Heart. That is just so expensive. I don't care if I can pay now and pay later. I don't care because I don't want to see it in general. But Scampering Surveyor I've seen BZ work with it, and it's been pretty nice, especially since it is colorless. You can put it in any deck that is having a hard time getting lands onto the battlefield, whether that's mono white or mono red or something like that.
Yeah, I've put it in artifact decks. I had an Ashnod deck that makes Power Stones. Perfect. Play this, you get some ramp. Great. I've also played it in mono blue or blue white decks that want to flicker, because if you're going to be finding these budget flicker targets, there's not that many that just say straight up go get a land. This is one of them, and I have really been happy with it. Of course, in a budget context, it's not the best card in the world. Don't play it instead of Sad Robot. But if you're building a $50 deck and you've got some scrappy dudes and you might be able to use an artifact or an ETB, or you care about creatures, I would consider this.
We love doing scrappy decks. It's really fun, and I highly encourage you to try building a budget deck if you haven't yet. The next card is Occult Epiphany at 69 cents.
Nice.
X and a blue for an instant. You draw X cards and then discard X cards. You create a 1/1 white spirit token with flying for each card type among cards discarded this way. This is pretty fun. I mean, there are so many cards nowadays with multiple types on them. I feel like even with a few cards that you are discarding, especially since you can discard anything in your hand, not just from the cards you draw, you can get a wide range and get a lot of spirits out of this.
Yes, if you discard an artifact creature, even if you cast X equals 1, you will still get 2 1/1 flyers. I have used this card to great effect in a multitude of different blue decks. I have a beatdown spells deck that wants to play tokens and stuff, where I fire this off and I go end step Occult Epiphany for 4, draw 4, discard 4, make 4 1/1s. Okay, now I'm ready to go. I just sculpted my hand. I've got a fighting force for next turn. The other deck I played this in was Octavia, where you just want to fill the graveyard. This is a spell that makes creatures for that deck. It was perfect. They have flying, so you can magecraft onto them and make them 8/8s. Occult Epiphany, I think, has a lot of homes. I don't see people play it. I feel like I'm the only one that I've played with that plays this. I would highly recommend getting a copy in your decks that care about looting or the graveyard or tokens. Like, it just does a lot of stuff.
It's put in so much work, and I'm really impressed. Just like Moxfield.com, the best place online to build a deck. If you want to see his Octavia deck that he was talking about, or his Balmor deck, which is still in rotation, you can check it out on our profile.
We have a bunch of decks that you can search cards for. You can search the decks. You can search for your favorite followers. You could search your own decks. You could search on Google.com, not sponsored, for Moxfield.com, sponsored. Much better. I would rather my default search engine be Moxfield.
I would love that too. But the next card on here is a card from Fallout. This is Rose, Cutthroat Raider at 99 cents. 2 red for a 3/2 with first strike with raid at the end of combat on your turn. If you attack this turn, you create a junk for each opponent you attacked, which is if you tap it and sack the artifact, exile the top card of your library, you can play it this turn, but only at sorcery speed. When you sacrifice a junk, you add red. This does a little bit of everything. As long as you attack with everyone, you don't even have to attack with Rose. You will get the junk, and if you sack the junk immediately, which you can, you add red, which is a little bit of ramp.
I've been really happy with this thing too. I think this goes in the decks that are low to the ground. You've got 1-drops, maybe some like sacrifice fodder. This might be good in a Mahadi-esque, where you've got a lot of things entering and leaving. It does trigger all of your Mayhem Devils and stuff. So that's really sweet. There's a couple notes with this card. It's kind of weird. If you play something like Adeline and you attack with it, you'll get a 1/1 attacking each opponent. But that won't count Rose. Rose has to see creatures go from not attacking to attacking. So you're going to have to send like 3 real things at people. But what you do, you get super rewarded. Even if you're only sending 1 a turn, which is like so feasible in Magic the Gathering Commander format, you're going to get a card basically. And that card will be cheaper to cast or whatever. It helps power out your other spells by adding a mana. And then of course the nuts, the top tier thing you could do is 3 junks that stick around even if Rose dies, that add 3 mana and will draw you 3 cards. Like, that's a mini Jessica's Will.
I think this card is awesome. I think that in Fallout, a lot of cards were overlooked, including this one, because it's like, oh, well, I don't really have junk synergies because junk was only a thing in Fallout. But this gives you the junk, but also gives you the mana when you sack it. So it doesn't really matter if this is one of the only things making the junk, because you'll still get the mana from it, and you will still have that card advantage right off the top.
I think this is one of the headliners we need to pay attention to when Red is starting to get card draw for real. Like, in the past year, Red's card draw has gone from almost non-existent to wait a second, I think we have a deck here. So mono red players, get these cards in your deck because they are very, very strong.
The next card is a card that makes mana and comes down very fast. It's Springleaf Drum at 79 cents. 1 mana for an artifact. If you tap it and tap an untapped creature you control, you add 1 mana of any color. This has done so much work. If you have little creatures that can come down basically immediately, this will help you ramp. And it just does something for the creatures you weren't going to send in for combat anyways. This keeps them a little bit safe, even against Go decks, which is super nice.
In a budget deck, I feel like this is the type of mana rock that helps you catch up to the non-budget players. I've just come around on this card altogether. I play this all the time. You need a high creature count. Either like 30 plus creatures or a bunch of non-creature ways to make tokens, preferably 1s and 2s so that you can play Springleaf Drum, play a cheap thing, and then tap the drum for mana, maybe play another cheap thing, or just help you develop. I've had a great time with it. It will be bad if you put it in the wrong deck, but I think this is a sick one. Auto-include in all the weenie decks for sure.
Yeah, anything that makes tokens. I was not a believer in this until I was like making tokens. I'm like, wow, I wish I could tap these for mana. And I didn't have anything like Elven Chorus out. But this actually really helped with that, especially with the creatures that I wanted to hold back anyways. I wasn't going to send them in or use them as blockers. Why not just use them for mana and also keep their static ability safe?
It's as close to fast mana as we're going to get for less than $1. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know if I would play this in green decks. It is a mana rock, so like I guess you just have to make that decision for yourself. Maybe we would lean towards not green, but in any creature deck that's not green, slamming this, especially on a budget. If I'm trying to build a $100 deck, this gives me a little bit of peace of mind that I can do stuff early and make plays.
I feel like the first few turns are the most important ones to begin with, and being able to set up with things like Springleaf Drum really helps you get your late game into action earlier than everybody else.
Okay, next, I'm going to let you talk about this card.
God, I love this card.
Because this is a solid removal spell.
I'm so angry at you guys for not keeping it up in price because it's so good.
What I think happened was we talked about this spell and we hyped it up, and then it spiked. And I don't think everybody likes it as much as us, so we're just going to talk about it again.
This really is my obscuring haze, huh?
It is.
This is Unexplained Absence at 49 cents. 3 and a white for an instant. For each player, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls. For each permanent exile this way, its controller cloaks the top card of their library. I think this card is great. As I mentioned earlier, I really love the 3-for-1s. This can even be a 4-for-1 if you're trying to get something off your own field. For instance, if you have a 1 ring that's about to kill you or something, this can get that off the field. It's one of the only easy ways to get it off the field. But in general, this can target most things that your opponents have, whether that be a pesky creature, enchantment, or whatever. For 4 mana, that's not too bad, especially if you're playing against things like Generous Gift, which are 3 mana for 1 single target removal, destroy. This is 4 mana, 3 plus that exiles. Sure, you cloak the top card of their library, but there is a pretty big chance that they won't be able or won't want to play it to begin with because it's something like a land or, something that they can't flip up.
Yeah, I mean, like 75% of the time, it's just going to stay as a 2/2 with Ward 2. I've not really seen it turn up, and we've played against this card a lot, especially from you. I think this card's very strong. I think it is not like on Swords to Plowshares level, but we've been saying we don't want to load our decks with all of like infinite 1v1. But like we've been saying, we don't want to cram our decks full of just 1-for-1 removal. And like comparing this to Generous Gift, which I might also play, I pay 1 more mana. I get to exile instead of destroy 3 things. They still get some crappy creature that is not very useful. And as a bonus, if I need a blocker, I can snipe one of my own clues and throw down the 2/2.
I am so sick of this card not getting the respect it deserved. I mean, we are loving things like Soul Shatter. I mean, Curtain's Call also doesn't get the respect it deserves, but that's another thing. We're getting things like Flare Mouse, and everyone's like, yeah, this is really awesome. Okay, well, this is a little bit more mana, but you can still snipe almost every single type of permanent so long as it's not a land, which you usually weren't sniping to begin with. I think that is such a wide range of targets to begin with. And the fact that it's just hitting more than one, the exile is so nice. Exile is so important nowadays. I feel like there are so many things that make things indestructible or whatever, and it's hard to get around that. So the fact that this is exile, this is multiple targets, and they can't really fizzle it unless everyone fizzles it is such a good upside that I'm happy to pay the 1 extra mana versus Generous Gift.
It's 50 cents. It's a very strong removal spell. Play it in your budget decks, and maybe outside of that too. It's very strong. Kutzel, Malamet Exemplar is next. This is a 99-cent card. It is 1 green-white for a 3/3. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, and if a creature with power greater than its base power hits a player, you draw a card. This can only be up to 3 because you can hit 1 player each. That will draw you 1 card each. Even if you hit each player with 4 creatures, you still only draw 3 cards. But like this is a 3-mana 3/3. it gives you total immunity. You don't have to worry about anything. As long as you have this card on your turn, you can attack freely, knowing that the board state will not change unless there's some weird onboard thing, but you have knowledge of that. So Kutsil works with +1/+1 counters, equipments, auras in most cases. Like, it just does a lot. And we're not talking about as a commander. This is just a rock-solid workhorse.
I've seen this in your CEDH deck. It has put in work, but overall, I feel like this is the nicer version of Grand Abolisher. Did you ever want that like little protection? But you're like, Grand Abolisher's kind of a mean card, or it's a little too expensive for your deck. This is a great option if you can run both colors for it.
Look, this card's also mean, so I guess if you don't want the baggage of Grand Abolisher and you want the same exact effect, basically, just put Kutsil in your deck and you spend less money. I think it's pretty sweet to get that synergy. Like, if you've got counters and stuff, like, not only can this protect your combos in the highest of high power scenarios, but even just in the mid power, you know that your aura creature, your trample thing, your Voltron, whatever is getting through. You're drawing a card off of it basically the turn this hits. And even if you take away combos and you just say that I have a win condition, I'm trying to win, they now have a tough decision of, when you play Kutsil, it's on the stack, they either counter it and have one less counter spell for your win con, or they let it go and they can't counter your win con.
I feel like this makes players have a lot of tough choices, and I love putting them in that position because it means less stuff for them to throw at me later.
Yeah, next is a card that does not get any respect, and I feel like nobody even knows it's real. It's Circle of the Land Druid at 35 cents. 1 and a green for a 1/1. Enters, you mill 4, and when it dies, you return a land from your graveyard to your hand. This is just a Satyr Wayfinder, number 5. It's not as good as Satyr Wayfinder, but I think it's right near that level where these graveyard creature-heavy decks, especially on a budget, this card goes right in, slam it, it's perfect. It's just a dumb little guy. You're going to sacrifice it for value or chump block, and it does have the nice bonus of, instead of like fetching a basic or something, it gets your best land. So the further along in the game you are, the better this card is.
Yeah, I love the fact that it doesn't have to be out of the cards that it milled, and it's just straight to hand. So if you have a really awesome land in the graveyard, whether, you tutor for it to be in there or you just happen to mill it into there, you will get it into your hand, and that's really nice.
I think this card does need to be played with sack outlets, because then it unlocks the ability for you to start hitting land drops that you would have missed otherwise with this card. That's what takes it to, from like early game filler to, oh, okay, I'm pretty excited about this. That's why I like Malevolent Rumble, Cash Grab, Satyr Wayfinder. Get them all in your budget decks. They're all like 3 cents, and they're going to really help smooth out your draws to the point that your games are going to start feeling not scripted, but you're going to feel really comforted knowing you always have a turn 2 play that can help hit land drops and fill your graveyard, which is exactly what your deck wants.
BZ seen this in my Euro deck, just rocking it in there. It has helped me get to that turn 3 plus turn 4 multiple casts of Euro so easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 out of 5 cards, so all you got to do is play a fetch land or something.
Play a land.
Yeah.
The next card is a card that I also play in Mahadi. It's Voracious Fellbeast at 35 cents. 4 black for a 4/4 with flying. When it enters, each opponent sacks a creature of their choice, and you create a food token for each creature sacrificed this way. There are so many synergies for like just sacking stuff in general. So having things die in your turn, like what I like, or just you want to have a little bit of removal, plus also making tokens if you have things like Mayhem Devil, so you want to be sacking stuff to ping people anyways. This does it all. Plus, it's a 4/4 body in the air. If you can blink this, that is awesome value. Even if you can just get a few creatures off the board, making food to help you sustain later, and then hitting people for 4. If you have dice triggers, really can help.
This card is pretty cool. It doesn't look like much, and we definitely overlooked it initially when Lord of the Rings came out. I guess that was a couple years ago now. But this card doesn't have, it's not perfect. By the time it comes down, they probably have something to sacrifice. You're not getting their best creature. This isn't Soul Shatter. This isn't Extracted Confession. But it just sort of chips away at their board state a little bit. You're getting a little bit of stuff from them. But you also get a 4/4 flyer in these budget, lower power decks that is relevant. And making 3 foods, it just does a lot of stuff. Putting crap into play is like the new value for Magic. You don't necessarily need to draw a bunch of cards. You just need to put a bunch of crap in play. And this is 4 permanents for 6 mana that you can flicker or reanimate later. And the life boost, when we're playing low power budget, or budget tends to be lower power in general. When we're playing budget, this life boost is relevant because life totals matter, because attacking and blocking is probably how we're going to close the game.
I mean, putting stuff into play, as you mentioned, is so important. We're playing a lot more things like Pick Your Poison nowadays. What would you rather sack? A food that you accidentally made off Voracious Fellbeast, or your, artifact that you've been trying to get onto the field so many times? I feel like that's super important.
Yeah, it just gums up the board. It lets you not worry too much about what's going to happen next, because you've got 9 life on Retainer, a couple artifacts entering, you got a stupid creature, you took a little bit of their board away, and the upside is there if they don't have that many creatures.
I feel like with budget, you just got to be chipping away and just slowly gaining advantage. I mean, sure, there are the glass cannon combo budget decks, which are completely valid and super cool, but if you're going for more of a grindy mid-range game like a lot of budget decks tend to be, this is where you're gonna be falling. You want to get incremental advantage, and this Voracious Fellbeast really helps with that.
It is quite good. It is performed higher than our initial expectation for sure. Next up, Sarkhan's Unsealing, a card that I didn't think I would end up playing, but I feel like I've won with this card so much.
Yeah.
It's 99 cents and it's 3 and a red for an enchantment. Super build around here, so you need a specific type of deck. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, it deals 4 damage to any target. When you cast a creature spell with power 7 or greater, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. We get Mizzium Mortars, like a Delayed Blast Fireball Mizzium Mortars grandchild off of this for free. All we got to do is land Sarkhan's Unsealing and then a 7-power creature. Sarkhan's Unsealing doesn't go away, so you can land more, and that, of course, once you hit like 2 or 3 triggers off this, it's game over. But I love that even if you don't get the 7 and you just cast some medium thing, you get to like snipe a creature. It's pretty okay.
If you're ramping really hard, or you're playing things with a lot of cost reduction like Goreclaw, or if you're playing things like Goreclaw on the 99, this is so good. It makes getting that 4, 5, and 6 so easy. You can just ping people down with the 4 damage and really kill them off that if they're low enough. Or just do the 7 or greater if you have enough creatures that can really hit that in your hand, and just do the Mizzium Wars to everyone. If you could do that multiple times, they won't have a board, and they will also be taking all of that damage too.
It's a one-sided board wipe for just you playing the game and advancing your board. Like, I think if there's some creatures that are really, really good with this, we're talking Galta, Primeval Protector, things like Rumbleweed or Ghoul Tree, just things that can be reduced but still keep their power. And there's even just reasonable cards like Kogla, Hideous Taskmaster, which are both reasonably budget. Like, if your deck has these big beefy powers and you're playing things like Selvala, Garruk's Uprising already, heavily consider this card, because it can solo games for you just from existing. And it's an enchantment, so it's a little sticky and annoying. If this was on a creature, I'd be a little bit less excited.
Honestly, I didn't expect this to be so much value for you. I think my big deal was like, okay, well, this is 4 mana, and then you're going to have to get something with power 7 or greater. That's kind of tough. I mean, if your deck's built around that, though, or you're making so much mana that you're kind of like swimming in it, that won't be that problem. All you have to do is make sure you have the cards in hand to cast it.
Yeah, this is definitely a do-nothing. You know, it's got the problem of just wait till I untap. There's some scenarios, if you have 11 mana or you have Galta, you can go Sarkhan's Unsealing, boom, and that's basically like a combo. You just like almost won the game off of just that. But yeah, there's some percentage of the time this is going to die, but I think that's mitigated a little bit by being enchantment and by the fact that once you pay it off, you are now winning the game. Like, you're in a winning position. You might be the arch enemy. Just get 1 trigger off it. It's not like, oh my god, I need this in play for 6 turns. You're going to play this and then play a 7-drop as soon as possible, and that's really great.
Honestly, if you have this in play for 6 turns, you're probably going to win. It is
that's
that powerful.
That's the freest victory ever.
Yeah, if you have this in play for 3 turns and you have enough cards to kind of just like churn out creatures, then you are going to win, especially if you can get that 7 or greater power, because that is, 12 damage to all of the creatures? If you can get all that in a single turn, you're basically just won at that point.
Yeah, it's not for Phyrexian Arena, where once you have it in play for 3 turns, it's passable. It's like, if you untap with it, you probably are going to clutch the game or be in a dominating position that they're going to have to figure out how to come back from. What do we got next? It's a free counterspell, actually.
The next one is Foil at 59 cents, 2 blue for an instant, but you can discard an island and another card to pay for its mana cost, counter target spell. Free interaction is hard to come by, especially at budget, because there's so many counterspells. Like Force of Will is like, oh, that's sitting at $70. I don't want to pay for that. I can't put a $70 card in my $50 budget deck. Well, you can put Foil in there, and that'll be not even a tenth of the deck, and that is so worth it. If you are playing something where you can easily get islands right off the bat, then this is such a nice card to have in there. If you're playing you should put this in every mono blue deck that you have, especially if it is budget, because we love a good free interaction.
I will add an addendum that you need card draw. You need like a decent chunk of card draw to make this not the worst, value ever. And I think you need to use it sparingly. If you're going to lose, and you're tapped out, you gotta counter something. If you're trying to protect a victory and you're trying to resolve a really important thing and they're trying to fight you, you're really gonna need that to hit the field. But like, if they play Grave Titan, don't use foil on it. We really gotta be picky with it, but I've had great success with this card. I think as long as you're drawing a bunch of cards, this card's good. And that is, I think, most of the decks where you would play this anyway, because I like this in heavy blue decks where discarding an island is not a problem. 1 or 2 color, primarily blue. Those decks just have card draw. You can play Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise, not Frantic Search, but like Deep Analysis, all the cards that put you up cards over the course of the game. This hasn't been that much of an issue. It's been pretty strong, and no one's going to see it coming when you're tapped out in a $50 deck.
This card is so awesome. I want people to be playing this more and realizing that building budget doesn't have to be super restrictive. You can still have your free spells if you really want. You can still have your wacky win cons and stuff, and you can still have a lot of power even with a slim budget.
Look, between this and Flare of Denial, Submerge is a little bit cheaper now, and there's also another one that I'm forgetting, Misdirection. Like, we've got a little bit of a stew cooking for free model blue spells in a budget deck, so I'm excited.
The next one is Clifftop Lookout at 35 cents. He's doing a great job. 2 and a green for a 1/2 with reach. When he enters, reveal cards from the top until you reveal a land. Put that card on the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I know you mentioned that you really like this, and it's a better version of Elvish Rejuvenator, provided you don't need an elf.
Yes, this has a lot of things going for it. I think most of the time these 3 mana dorks that just find a land and put them into play are just good for like a body. And now this is an extra toughness and is reach. So the chump block potential is a lot higher on this card. And if you don't really care what land you're putting out anyway, right? Like a basic land is the land you want the least. So Farhaven Elf searches for a basic, but this can hit anything. It can hit a dual land, or in the worst case scenario, your lamest land, a basic. So I feel like this is just a straight upgrade to possibly Elvish Rejuvenator, because that card can whiff and this cannot, and Farhaven Elf, because they're the cards that only get 1 land. I'll just take this chance. I can't miss, and I can hit a better land. So I do like Clifftop Lookout, assuming you don't have some random elf synergies. Then you should play the elves. But if you don't care what creature type your creatures are, this is better than some of those cards that you're already playing.
Honestly, regardless of whether I've been playing budget or non-budget, I have still been taking a lot of basics out of my decks because there have been so many good utility, fixing, etc. that have been under $2. That have been making it to $50 decks, $100 decks, even $25 decks if you want to, do some of the lands that have been reprinted 10 billion times at common. But this can find all of them. It can really help you fix those colors even in a budget. I really love that about it, because I feel like sometimes that's one of the hardest things to do, to be able to cast all of your spells if you're running 3, 4, or 5 colors.
I like that point, because we don't tend to play that many basics in our decks. And even on budget, I've had decks that have like 7 basics, but they still want a dorky ramp creature. This is perfect. You can't worry about running out, because this just finds whatever is on top. It's going to be a land you're not going to miss. I do like Clifftop Lookout. I just wanted to let him know that he's doing a good job. Next is a card that is seeing almost no play in the format whatsoever, but we think it's pretty cool, worth considering. Maybe this is like our more speculative entry, but I think this card's pretty cool. It's Dissection Tools. It's 50 cents. I think it's in like 3,000 decks. So Secret Check Alert. 5 mana artifact. When it enters, you manifest Dread, then attach the tools to it. So you end up with a 4/4, because it'll get +2/+2 and have Death Touch and Lifelink. And the equip is what has me a little interested. Sacrifice a creature. I don't ever have to pay mana to move this thing around. So it's a 5 mana investment. Sure, that's a lot, but then no more investment forever. And no matter when you play this, you will be able to equip to a creature that is already in play, give it a pretty nice boost, plus get a lifelink swing in, which I think is pretty real.
I think this is pretty interesting. I thought it was not that impressive when I first saw it, but I guess I overlooked the fact that it does come with the creature and you'll never have to pay for that mana cost to equip. Because a lot of the equipments that I feel are like, ooh, this is good, provided you can reduce the cost to equip it, or provided it says, like, attach it to creature automatically, or, I feel like there are a lot of caveats when it comes to equipment. Like, it better be that good if you're paying that much because of the equip cost plus the, cast cost. But the fact that this is a one-time, one and done, and if you could get anything to reduce the casting cost of this, means that it'll just equip for free. Death Touch and Lifelink has become increasingly relevant, especially in budget. I feel like,
Life swings matter.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we won or lost a game because of like Basilisk Collar, just because that Death Touch Lifelink is pretty important.
That's where I was going next, is what cards does this serve a similar role as? And I'm thinking the first ones that come to mind is Batterskull, and like you said, like Loxodon Warhammer is maybe another one, and Basilisk Collar. So Batterskull, I don't know. I think this card's like way better than Batterskull. So if you've got Batterskull in your deck, I think it's like the easiest cut ever to just throw detection tools in. They both give you the 4-mana 4/4 lifelink defender, I guess, if you're not attacking. But this lets you go offense every time. The turn you play it. Who cares about this 2/2 Manifest Dread or whatever your worst creature is? Just sacrifice it. And then you still, if you don't sacrifice the 2/2, you still have a blocker. I love it over Batterskull. For sure, if there's nothing else from this card, cut Batterskull for it. But I also think like Loxodon Warhammer, what that gives you over Dissection Tools is Trample. But Dissection Tools is cheaper to play and equip than the Warhammer. And as soon as you start having to equip the Warhammer twice, you're talking 9 mana. This is only ever 5 mana.
Yeah, I think that while it doesn't look as good on its surface as these other ones, once you start adding up how much you have to pay to equip all of this and how much time it really takes to start get some of the other cards going, this can be a lot more value in the future, provided it sticks around.
Yeah, and the other one is Basilisk Collar. It's 1 to play, 2 to equip. So when you equip to the first creature, you're saving mana. That's only 3. But as soon as you have to equip to another creature, we're at 5. I feel like we're close. Dissection Tools seems like it should be getting more respect and more play than it deserves. It still has the Death Touch Pinger combo. It still has the offense-defense stuff where you get a lifelink swing right away. Give Dissection Tools a chance. If you want to know what more cards that we think you should give a chance to, that's the video right here. So keep the train rolling and say hi to us for the next video.